The OReilly Factor's on tonight.
My administration will aggressively pursue joint and coalition military operations to crush and destroy ISIS.
Donald Trump making a big anti-terrorist speech today. Will it help reverse his falling poll numbers? Talking Points will answer that question.
No justice, no peace! No justice, no peace!
Demonstrations here in Milwaukee as people protest the fatal police shooting of a black man.
More racial unrest, this time in Milwaukee, as police kill an armed black suspect. We'll have the inside story on what really happened.
So tell me what Oak Bluffs is all about.
Peace and tranquility.
I'm here to ruin that, sorry.
Also ahead, Jesse Waters goes to Martha's Vineyard to vacation with President Obama. Kind of.
I gotta fix something.
Oh, gee.
Caution, you are about to enter the no spin zone. The Factor begins right now. Hi, I'm Bill O'Reilly. Thanks for watching us tonight. Where the Trump campaign is right now, that is the subject of this evening's Talking Points memo. First of all, neither candidate has momentum. Even though the polls say Hillary Clinton is up by about 7 points nationally, voters are not jumping up and down for either candidate, generally speaking. But it is certainly true that Donald Trump has lost support, and in states like Florida, North Carolina, and Virginia, he's falling behind Secretary Clinton. One cautionary note. Polling in mid-August doesn't really mean very much. Only after Labor Day will polling begin to shed some real light on the race. And after the first debate on September 26th, the polling will become intense. There's no question that Donald Trump is hurting himself by using the same kind of rhetoric that helped him win the primaries. Very ironic. Trump's shoot from the hip, seek and destroy speech-making vaulted him over his Republican challengers. But now, when he makes a flamboyant statement, it's rammed down his throat by a hostile press. Some examples. On July 29th, the government announced that the growth in the second quarter was 1.2%, a disaster. And the Democratic Party immediately was on the defensive. But just 2 days later, Donald Trump criticized Ghazala Khan, the mother of an army captain killed in Iraq. Immediately, all hell broke loose, and the disappointing economic number vanished from view. Same thing happened on August 9th, as emails showed that Hillary Clinton used her position as Secretary of State to possibly benefit the Clinton Foundation. Big story, right? But the exact same day, Donald Trump said this.
Hillary wants to essentially abolish the Second Amendment. By the way, and if she gets to pick her judges, nothing you can do, folks. Although the Second Amendment people, maybe there is, I don't know.
Immediately, the liberal press accused Trump of threatening Mrs. Clinton. The Washington Post editorializing, quote, encouraging armed resistance against the federal government is not the most worrisome of possible meanings. Other listeners assumed that Mr. Trump was encouraging supporters to train their weapons on Ms. Clinton herself, unquote. Think about how insane that sentence is. Other listeners assume Trump wants Clinton murdered? Yet the Washington Post editorial board put that in the paper. Why? Well, they despise Donald Trump and are using Saul Alinsky's rules for radicals, number 13. Quote, pick the target, freeze it, personalize it, and polarize it. Cut off the support network and isolate the... That is what the anti-Trump press is doing. But back to Trump himself. There are two things in play here. He is not recognizing that explosive comments like those about Muslim women and gun control can and will be used against him. And that an extremely hostile American press will use his words not only to denigrate him, but also to avoid reporting on real issues affecting the USA. I predicted this would happen more than a year ago. Finally tonight, the factor tip of the day, the media despising Donald Trump. And here's why. He has no fear. He could not care less about censoring himself, and the press does not intimidate him. So because of that approach, the media believe they must punish Mr. Trump for being disrespectful and not cowering before them. Plus, they don't like his politics, generally speaking. And that has come to pass. So the Trump campaign is now in some trouble. And today, the candidate sought to begin rebuilding his base. In Youngstown, Ohio, Mr. Trump laid out his plan to aggressively defeat Islamic terrorism.
My administration will aggressively pursue joint and coalition military operations to crush and destroy ISIS, international cooperation to cut off their funding, expanded intelligence sharing, and cyber warfare to disrupt and disable their propaganda and recruiting.
Now, in speaking with Mr. Trump over the months, it's safe to assume that he would attack ISIS on the ground using some American forces. That separates him from the Obama administration and perhaps Hillary Clinton. Mr. Trump also reiterated that he will not get any more specific about his ISIS strategy. That was immediately mocked by Hillary Clinton.
My administration will not telegraph exactly military plans and what they are.
Sometimes he says he won't tell anyone what he'll do because he wants to keep his plan, quote, secret. And then it turns out the secret is he has no plan.
Now, that's politics as usual, but it's clear that Donald Trump would take a far more aggressive policy against the jihadists than the Democrats are advocating. That's clear. So you, the voter, have that contrast to consider. But overall, the press has succeeded in marginalizing Donald Trump to some extent, and he has helped them do it. Again, the bombast worked in the primaries. His attacks work. But they will not work in the general election unless the attacks that Trump makes are very specific. So if you say President Obama created ISIS, for example, you have to immediately back that up with facts. If you say something about elections being rigged, you're going to get hammered unless you can point to some data to back it up. Now, Talking Points is dedicated to covering the Trump-Clinton race in a fair way. It's a fact that if you do not condemn Donald Trump, you yourself are condemned by many in the media. Same thing in the far-right precincts. If you don't call Hillary Clinton the devil, then somehow you become Lucifer. Those points of view are dangerous. We need clarity on issues, not mud-based attacks. Despite all the controversy, Donald Trump could still win the presidency. He needs to discipline himself rhetorically. He needs to start spending money in the swing states to counter negative ads against him, and he needs to present himself in a less personal way. Today in his speech, he was strong about protecting America in the areas of immigration, security, and dealing with terror on the net. Liberal Americans aren't going to vote for Trump anyway, so there's little risk in him continuing to lay out a tough anti-terror and anti-illegal alien program. Combine that with a faltering economy, and Trump has a chance. But right now, Hillary Clinton's definitely ahead. And that's a memo. Next on the rundown, we'll have reaction. Then later, how dishonest is the national media anyway? Also, Charles Krauthammer on a possible solution to racial violence. Those reports after these messages. Continuing now with our lead story, where the Trump campaign is in real time. Joining us from Washington, David Morris, Deputy Managing Editor at the Kipling Letter. And from Austin, Texas, Dr. Darren Shaw, Republican pollster, professor at the University of Texas. So, Doctor, do you see it my way? Am I missing something?
I think you got the story pretty much right. Trump faces, enormous negatives at this point. I was looking back at some Gallup data from the past 50, 60 years, and only twice has a presidential candidate who trailed coming out of the conventions gone on to win the election. It was Truman in 48 and George W. Bush in 2000. And one of the reasons for that, as I think you suggested, is that once the conventions are done, there are very few events left. You've got the debates, maybe a couple of high-profile speeches, but there are not many opportunities to turn things around. Right? And in addition to that, his path to victory is pretty narrow. The states, the groups that he needs to advance his case with, they're going to be very challenging. He's got a very narrow pathway to get where he needs to go.
All right, but he is pretty close, Mr. Morris, in even the states that he's slipped in. He remains close, and there was an LA Times poll, national poll, that was the latest one. He's down by 4 in that poll. So he's hanging in despite all this other business.
He is hanging in, Bill, but it's the 6th inning of a 9-inning game, and he just hit a single, and he can't swing for the fences and make up 7 points all at once. He needs a single tomorrow, and he needs another hit the day after that, and the day after that. And time is really short. It's not November 8th that we're looking at, which is Election Day. Really, we're looking at, the 45 days out, middle of October, early October even. Last time around 2012, almost a third of Americans voted early. He needs to reach those folks, and he needs to reach them right now.
When does that start? Do we know when that starts, guys? The early voting in different states? Go ahead.
It starts in different states and different places. So, for instance, I'm in Texas. In Texas, you have about 12 days of early voting. It starts mid-October. Mm-hmm. So roughly after the first 2 presidential debates and after the VP debate, but before the 3rd. In California, no-fault absentee starts, in very early October. So you bank a lot of these votes early, and Hillary's going to be working hard to get those votes, locked down.
Yeah, well, California, though, is a fait accompli, and so is Texas. Texas will go for Trump, and California will go for Clinton. But it is interesting that the voting does start pretty much after the first debate, Mr. Morris. And I think that first debate is going to be very well watched. And again, where we're not allowing for anything crazy, which could happen on both sides. Craziness is in the air this campaign season. And I mean serious craziness, all right? It's in the air. So anything can happen. But if it stays this way and Trump disciplines himself a little bit more, I think he's going to close that gap because the economy is weak and the Democrats have a lot of problems on the terror front and other places. Am I wrong?
Well, he's going to close the gap in a couple of places for a couple of reasons, but primarily remember that after Labor Day, most polls are going to start switching to questioning likely voters rather than registered voters. That will help Trump gain a point or two at least. It has in the past, and it will this year.
Is that because his voters are more jazzed than Clinton's voters, or more excited?
No, it's because Republicans tend to turn out more with greater frequency than Democrats historically.
I didn't know
Democrats out-register them, but Republicans turn out at a better clip.
Okay. Now, today, Dr. Shaw, did you watch Trump's speech in Youngstown, Ohio?
I did get a chance to see it, yes.
Okay, so he's on a prompter, and his energy level when he goes on a prompter is down, but he still made his points, stayed within the parameters of what his national security vision is. Would you recommend that that's the strategy that he should go by, everything on the prompter, and not try to whip the crowd into a frenzy? Because he does get in trouble sometimes when he tries that.
He does. And, I think you see the ambivalence I have in answering that question is something I'm sure the Trump advisors feel, which is, he's had these successes approaching things a certain way, but it's, as you pointed out, it's a general election now. You can't be off script.
And he's got to see the polls. He's got to see them.
Yeah.
I mean, the numbers are the numbers. And when you're, the Democrats are close in Georgia and Utah and Arizona, which are traditionally Republican strongholds, Trump's not stupid. He sees the numbers. And I think today was a good example. Let's give Mr. Morris the last word on it.
Well, remember one thing, Bill, that is that there are no teleprompters at the debates, and that's going to be where he has to put up or shut up, and I think so far he's proven that he's not very consistent at doing that.
All right, but remember in the debates with the Republicans that according to the internet, he won them all. So I don't know what that, I think Trump is going to hold his own, but we'll see. Gentlemen, thank you. Directly ahead, Mr. Trump says the media is out to get him. True? We'll debate it. And later, more racial violence, this time in Milwaukee. Charles Krauthammer on how to heal the racial wounds in America. Up ahead. Personal story segment tonight, another very provocative soundbite by Donald Trump.
I'm not running against crooked Hillary Clinton. I'm running against the crooked media. That's what I'm running against. These are the most dishonest people. So I think maybe what we'll do maybe we'll start thinking about taking their press credentials away from them.
Trump specifically talking about the New York Times in that soundbite. Joining us from Boston, Democratic strategist Marianne Marsh, and here in New York City, Republican Katie Pavlich. The prevailing wisdom is you don't go after the press if you're a politician or even a pundit like me, because there's a revenge, and it's a cycle of they'll attack you if you attack them. Does that apply to Donald Trump?
Was it Bill Clinton who said you don't attack people who buy ink by the barrel kind of thing?
No, I think that, where that quote came from, a Thomas Jefferson era.
Oh, well, there you go. It goes way back to the beginning of the country.
But do you believe that?
Well, it depends. I mean, the media has certainly helped Donald Trump in the primary to get all of the free media, to spend any money on advertising, that kind of thing. However, of course the media is biased, but he's using this to his advantage. The media has a 6% approval rating, which is even below that of Congress. And so it's actually to his credit to use this as a campaign.
So you think it's a plus for him, because I agree with you, his base doesn't like the media. But remember now, he's got to go out and convince other people. How do you see it, Marianne?
Well, I think I agreed actually with most of your talking points, shocking as that may be. But I think the real point here is Donald Trump with the press and voters, they've stopped giving him the benefit of the doubt. And as a result, he's in this bad cycle now of bad press, bad polls, and his bad reaction to both. And it keeps repeating itself. The second point I would make here, and it's a big distinction, is the vote for president is the most personal vote any American casts every 4 years. So they look at this and Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton through a very personal lens. When he started attacking people, private citizens, you mentioned the cons, I would add to that a reporter who is disabled, voters started to see that in very personal terms, and they said, wait a minute, if he treated them like that, will he do that to me?
Well, maybe, but that's all theoretical.
Opinions.
Let's get back, though, to the main...
No, it's in the... Actually, Bill, it was in the polling. You can see that specifically in the polls.
People don't like anybody who run other people down, particularly women, and they're going to react negatively to that. But remember, by his no spin or whatever you want to say, he won because he was blunt. Now it's working against him, as I pointed out. But how would you react if the Washington Post said that, the Second Amendment gun, that you could have wanted Hillary Clinton assassinated?
Well, it's absurd. I actually wrote...
Once you reach... And that's the Washington Post editorial board.
Right, and I actually wrote an entire column, many of your viewers may be surprised, defending Trump on that issue. And as I said, there's no doubt that the liberal media is biased towards Trump. But I do want to say, as a journalist, a reporter, as someone in the media, I think it's highly inappropriate for Donald Trump to say he's going to start stripping people's press credentials. And in fact, this week... I
don't know why. If somebody is really being dishonest, I'd strip them too.
But he has had a lot of grounds for evidence.
The Washington Post editorial implying that some people feel that Trump is calling for the assassination of Secretary Clinton. Now, if you're Donald Trump and you're reading that, you're saying, look, this is out of control. This hatred of me is out of control. Are you not saying that?
You got to be able to take this. This is nothing compared to being president.
Why do you have to be able to take it? Donald Trump has a perfect right as a human being to draw a line about the press. He doesn't have to take it. Now, if he doesn't take it, he risks the backlash. But how much worse can it get? They're accusing him of possibly wanting a woman dead. How much worse can it get?
Look, Bill, you have to be able to take these kinds of hits because it's much harder when you're president of the United States. This campaign is nothing compared to being president.
Yes, I wouldn't take him if I were running.
You have to be able to parry and go back at them and fight the fight and go through it and show voters what you're made of. Because if you don't stand up for yourself, voters then say, you're not going to stand up for me. So if he can't take the Washington Post editorial board, how's he going to take ISIS? Really? He should get specific, not say they're all terrible people. He should get specific and use examples. I don't think it can get any worse with Donald Trump in the press.
Well, look,
do you think it can get worse?
Of course, it can always get worse. You never say it can't get worse. That is like the ultimate thing you never say. But here's the problem with Donald Trump and the history with the press. He has stripped press credentials from credible outlets like Politico, the Washington Post, even I think the New York Times and BuzzFeed. As a matter of fact, they're political reporters for simply reporting things were unfavorable to him, not necessarily things that were not true.
Think they're being fair to him.
Well, you can't just strip press credentials and completely eliminate the First Amendment Amendment and your respect for it because you don't like unfavorable coverage.
You ladies are both saying the same thing. You can't. He can. He's in charge of that.
But if he wants to be president, I think he should respect.
All right, then that's your point of view. Thank you, Sir. Marianne, last word.
Right. If he's president of the United States, is he going to throw people out of the White House press briefing room? Really?
I hope so.
I mean, come on.
No, you can't.
You can't take that. You shouldn't be president. Come on.
All right, ladies. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Plenty more as the Factor moves along this evening. Disturbing situation in Milwaukee as police kill an armed black man, causing violence to break out. We'll tell you what really happened there. And Charles Krauthammer on whether there is a solution to racial strife in America. Also, Waters vacationing with President Obama, kind of. We hope you stay tuned for those reports. More racial strife, this time in Milwaukee on Sunday morning. The New York Times ran a headline on its webpage saying, quote, unrest in Milwaukee after police fatally shoot unarmed man. That headline was false. Paper has now retracted it, pointing out that the ensuing article did say the suspect was armed. The man in question, Sylville Smith, 23 years old, killed by a black police officer after fleeing a traffic stop on Saturday. Police say Smith had a gun, and they have video to prove it. Smith has a long record with gun-involved crimes as well. Now, that incident led to violence in the street in Milwaukee. Businesses were torched, 31 arrested so far, 11 police officers injured, and an 18-year-old shot in the neck by an unknown assailant. All in all, another awful display in America. Joining us from Milwaukee, Dan O'Donnell, radio talk show host on WISN. So am I leaving anything out here? Did I miss anything about the story, first of all?
Well, a pretty amazing revelation just a couple of hours ago, Bill. It turns out that Sylville Smith, the suspect who was shot and killed, knew the Milwaukee police officer who killed him. The two apparently went to high school together. This, according to the sister of Smith, Sherelle Smith, telling the local Fox television affiliate that the two knew each other in high school. I don't know the extent to which they knew each other, but this wasn't just a police officer shooting a suspect that he didn't know. It appears as though this officer knew who it was he was shooting. Also, it should be known that the autopsy revealed that Smith was shot in the chest and in the arm, not in the back, as was rumored, indicating that he turned around. And in fact, Milwaukee Police Chief Ed Flynn said he turned around toward the officer with a gun in his hand.
Now, what about the video? That's going to tell a tale on this whole case. Is there video of the suspect with a gun?
There is, in fact, body camera video that has not yet been released, but Milwaukee Mayor Tom Barrett and Chief Ed Flynn say it's going to be released as soon as possible. Of course, this is an investigation that's still in its very early stages.
But did they both say that the guy had a gun?
But the video does show.
Do they say he had a gun?
It does. It does show. They say he had a gun. They say that he turned with the gun in his hand toward the officer.
All right. So that's on the record by the mayor and the police chief. We'll see. Now, how does a demonstration get organized that quickly? I mean, the guy is shot and killed. The investigation starts, and all of a sudden, there are hundreds of people in the street burning stuff down. How does that happen?
Well, this was apparently organized on Facebook. There was a Facebook group that was, I believe, shut down in the middle of the rioting because it was being used to get people out to the various locations. I'm not going to say the name of that Facebook page. Also, Snapchat was used to sort of get people out there. And that's how they were able to get those huge crowds together very, very quickly. They were all on their phones and they were on social media basically organizing this thing as they went.
Did any of the news media in Milwaukee report the story accurately and say, what are you doing? I mean, this looks like a justifiable shooting. Does anybody report that right away?
Well, we didn't know the details of the shooting until Sunday afternoon.
Okay,
when
so
Chief
there was,
Flynn
all
gave
right,
a press
I got
conference.
it. So there was a lag time.
Yeah.
But the people who were demonstrating, I guess, assumed that this was an unarmed man, right?
Yeah, they were going on basically rumor that was spreading through social media and people talking to each other before we even knew anything that happened. The only thing that we knew on Saturday night.
Okay.
It is very dangerous, and they were going just on rumors that turned out to be very false.
Now, the guy who was shot in the neck by the unknown assailant, he's not dead, right? He's okay?
No, he did suffer life-threatening injuries, but last time I checked, he was still alive, an 18-year-old man.
All right, Mr. O'Donnell, we appreciate the background. Thank you very much. And when we come right back, can anything be done about racial hatred in America? We'll put that question to Charles Krauthammer. And Waters on Martha's Vineyard with President Obama.
President Obama back on the vineyard. What's he need all this rest for?
Every other week he just seems to be on the golf course.
His golf game's not really improved that much, has it?
From what we've seen, no.
Factor is coming right back.
The O'Reilly Factor, the #1 cable news show for 15 years and counting.
Thanks for staying with us. I'm Bill O'Reilly in the Unresolved Problems segment tonight. As we just reported, violence in Milwaukee broke out after a black police officer shot and killed a black man who the cops say had a gun. The Milwaukee County Sheriff, David Clark, reacted this way.
Here's what causes riots. We have inescapable poverty in the city of Milwaukee. Milwaukee's like the 6th poorest city in America. You have massive black unemployment. I think it's at 32%. You have a failing K-12 public education system. It's one of the worst in the nation. You have questionable lifestyle choices. Some of this is self-inflicted. All these kids with no fathers around. Father-absent homes. When fathers aren't around to shape the behavior of young men, they oftentimes grow up to be unmanageable misfits. Those are the ingredients. Milwaukee has all of them. All this police shooting did, of an armed individual, by the way. When 4 other murders happened the night before and you didn't see this sort of reaction.
Joining us now from Washington, Charles Krauthammer. So the sheriff went on to say that he believes the welfare system, the social entitlements that are encouraged by the progressive community and the Democratic Party in particular, have really eroded the social structure in the African-American community. First of all, do you believe that? And second, how has that happened?
Well, I don't believe it caused it. I do believe it exacerbated it in a very obvious way. The sheriff is absolutely right. The root cause of all this is the breakdown of the community and the family and the black family. That's what he's talking about. That's what Pat Moynihan, the famous liberal senator and professor of sociology at Harvard, wrote in 1965, a report for which he was viciously attacked and even ostracized because he pointed to the breakdown of the black family. The major task of any society, of any family, overall, the organization of society, is to socialize young men, to civilize them. That's what the family is for. That's what society is for. If you fail at that, you fail at everything. And what Moynihan pointed out in 1965 was to an illegitimacy epidemic. Do you know what the number was at the time? 24%. You know what it is now among African Americans? 70% nationally. In some of the cities, 80 to 90%. The sheriff is absolutely right. Fatherlessness. No one, not just to be the role model, but to be the disciplinarian. You saw that clip of the father of the guy who was shot in Milwaukee, that guy, Mr. Smith. The father saying, I'm at fault. I wasn't there. He was
I was in jail.
He
the
had
father
a check.
had to, right.
So at that point, the kid, the boy, has so little chance. Add to that the schools that are corrupt, controlled by the teachers union, give the worst education. No liberal in America would agree to have a child in that school, and they don't.
But how does the payment system, the welfare system, how does that erode?
Let me explain.
Go ahead.
When FDR instituted the aid to families with dependent children, it was intended to subsidize widows raising kids. It was never intended to what it ended up being in the 60s, 70s, 80s, to be a subsidy for illegitimacy. What was discovered was that if you had a child, you were unmarried in your late teens, early 20s, and as long as you didn't have a man in the house, not just unmarried, people used to hide the boyfriends. They would run away when the social workers showed up, because if there's a man in the house, you lost your payments. It was the worst incentive you can imagine. Well-meaning government trying to subsidize a single mother, trying to raise her kids, very hard to do. But what it created was a cash payment system where essentially if you had an illegitimate child, no one to help you out in the house, you were subsidized. The government essentially became your providing husband.
And the more kids you had, the more money you got.
And you created a new generation with no father, no role model. increasing poverty, desperation, and all the pathology that we talk about today. It is a tragedy because it was all well intended.
But the Progressive Party will never admit that. They will never say, gee, you know, we were well intended, but it didn't work, and now we have to look at another way.
Well, Bill Clinton did.
He did in a way.
Welfare reform in 1996.
Right, but that was based on work.
Attached it. Yes, that attached it to work, and that revolutionized welfare.
This is based on something else. This is based on morality. Now, Clark basically says, Sheriff Clark, that the black community in America has to solve the problem itself, that the government can't. So if African Americans want a better society, all right, they have to confront this growing problem of the deterioration of the family. Do you think that will ever happen?
Look, that has always been true. It's true for every community. It's been made worse by the policies of the government. The problem for us is everybody is aware of the problem, but no one knows. There's no political solution to what would have to be a reformation, sort of a re-spiritualization, if you like, of these communities that are suffering so much. The sources of strength, of course, are the churches, some of the community organizations, and that's where all that has to come from. But I think there are a few things the government can do at the margins. The first was reforming welfare, which Obama has largely undone the work requirement. And second, what we need to talk about is to try to salvage at least some of the students by giving them educational choice.
The vouchers and
so
stuff like that.
You can start by working from the outside.
All right.
You can start by doing those things. But the rest, unfortunately, is up to a community that is in very dire straits.
All right, Charles, thank you very much. Water's on deck. He went to Martha's Vineyard where President Obama is vacationing. Then I traveled to Normandy, France, and Ireland on vacation. I'll tell you about it in the tip of the day. That's moments away. Back in the book segment tonight, Water's World. As you may know, President Obama is vacationing in a very nice place, Martha's Vineyard, Massachusetts, which is a Democratic stronghold. It's also home to Oak Bluffs, one of the oldest African-American resort towns in the country. Waters checked it all out.
So tell me what Oak Bluffs is all about.
Peace and tranquility.
I'm here to ruin that, sorry.
Oh, yeah, because you're a real hemorrhoid.
Don't talk to me anymore.
Have you seen any celebrities since you've been down here?
Well, besides you, no.
I met Vanessa Williams and Spike Lee.
Was Spike nice to you?
He was not.
What does that mean?
Obama was here, of course.
Tell the president I'm looking for him, okay?
Oh, I'm looking for him too.
President Obama here back on the vineyard. What's he need all this rest from?
You don't think running the free world is not stressful?
Running it into the ground, you mean?
We are pleased with all his accomplishments, and I think the economy shows how pleased we are.
Yeah, destroying the economy is very hard work.
He needs to get rest from Congress not helping him out at all.
Everybody needs a vacation.
Even they?
No, not you.
All I need is just a quick 10 minutes.
Don't forget, fighting climate change is very hard work, too.
Oh, climate change is real.
I like global warming. More time at the beach.
Overall, he's done a pretty good job. Would you agree?
There's actually less people working now than there were when Obama took office.
That's a very interesting point of view.
Every other week, he just seems to be on a golf course, and a lot of us have just been frustrated by that.
Why don't you get out of there? Give someone else a chance.
What do you really like about this president?
Hope.
Hope for a new president?
Come on.
I like President Obama because he stuck to his mission.
How's that working out?
I think it's working out well.
Tell me what you think the president's biggest accomplishments have been.
Shall we roll on?
His interest in public education. I'm a public educator.
Public's not that educated. You ever seen my show?
No, never.
From Jump Street, I just thought he was a community organizer. We've seen nothing positive. We have people shooting cops, and he's not coming out and really saying, hey, knock it off.
Absolutely.
Black Americans have not prospered economically under
Yeah,
this
we have.
president.
Yeah, we have.
Well, you have, obviously.
Yeah, no, a lot of us have. You try to say we haven't, but we have.
Black incomes and black home ownership down under this president.
We cannot put anything totally responsibility on him whatsoever.
It's still Bush's fault, right?
It's so many other presidents' faults before him, and he had a lot of mopping up to do when he got to the White House.
My opinion, he's black only when it's convenient. Get into the Chicago neighborhood. How come we've had thousands of murders? And where's his talk about that?
Do you think the president has been confronted by a lot of racism throughout his presidency?
Yeah, racism is a part of America.
When you hear his name called by certain people, they say Obama. They don't even say president. That is just so disrespectful.
Do you ever say Bush? Do you think the president's had a rough time with the press?
Yes. Everything he does is criticized in great volume.
I just think there's always some type of spin that is always negative towards.
That's not true. We're in the no spin zone on the O'Reilly Factor.
O'Reilly Factor. Oh, I am really.
Do you think Fox News has been fair to President Obama?
I'll plead the fifth.
A lot of people in Obama's team do that. A lot of people have been saying recently that Bill O'Reilly is probably the best person ever on television.
I think he's one of the smartest.
I love that.
You know who I am?
Yeah, Wally's World.
Wally World, we made it.
You're Jesse Waters.
And whose world is it?
It's your world.
You truly scare me. I just want to let you know that.
Yeah, the guy with the Trump shirt, did he get any jazz walking around Oak Bluff?
I asked him, he said, no threats. I can't believe you haven't congratulated me. I found the one black Trump supporter on Martha's Vineyard.
Well, it wasn't hard. He had the Trump shirt.
I know.
I mean, come on. But they were treating him respectfully,
he was very
right?
well treated.
And the other woman made a very good point. When you address a president, you should call him President Obama, not Obama or Bush.
Well, I do
whatever.
it for brevity because, you know, it's a tight segment.
Yeah, but I think she was right.
She was right.
I think that even if you don't like President Obama or you don't approve of him, you respect the office, and I think that was a good point. They like you there, or they didn't care?
Well, I've been there probably 6 times. I want Obama to win a 3rd term so I can keep this assignment
Isn't
going.
that a nice place, though?
It's a beautiful place. It's a
Oak
magical
Bluffs
place.
is such a nice place, and so the whole island is nice. Did you see James Taylor? Did you see him?
No, I did not see James Taylor.
You know, because you've got a friend if you see James.
I know.
You know what I'm talking about?
You're dating yourself.
And he loves you. Don't make fun of James.
I would never.
He made me old. He's cleaning up on a concert.
I know. We sent him over to Paris to smooth things over.
Jesse Waters, everyone. Factor tip of the day, my vacation to Normandy, France, and Ireland. The tip, moments away. Factor tip of the day, where I went on vacation in a moment. But first, great deal alert. If you pre-order my new book, Killing the Rising Sun, there it is, out September 13th. You'll get it first. If you sign up or re-up for BillO'Reilly.com premium membership, you get it free. So we hope you check it out, because you will like Killing the Rising Sun. Legends and Lies of Patriots continues to sell very well all across the country. DVD of the TV series will be out in October, but you can get the inside story on our TV project from the book. We have more detail in there, so we hope you check that out as well. Reminder, all the money I get from BillO'Reilly.com donated to charity. Now the mail, Matt Lipinski, Austin, Texas. I am starting to wonder whether Donald Trump really wants to be president. He was perfectly positioned after the convention, yet all he's done since is step on his tongue. Steve Hammond, Port Ludlow, Washington. What happens if Trump is convinced to drop out? Not going to happen unless a personal tragedy intervenes. Same thing with Hillary Clinton. But if disaster befalls, Mike Pence would head the ticket. Jordan Davies, Birmingham, England. Mr. O'Reilly Sr. segment on New York City recognizing 31 genders has cemented my view that the world has gone mad. You know, that's what Miller thinks too, Jordan. No question, strange things are in the air these days. Andrea Brady, Toms River, New Jersey, finished Killing Reagan last weekend, loved it. He was the first president I voted for. The rough cut of the movie Killing Reagan finished as well, Andrea. Will be shown October 16th on Nat Geo. It's good. You guys are going to be interested to see that, I think. Marjorie Valentine, Phoenix, Arizona, just renewed my BillO'Reilly.com premium membership because all of your books have a positive impact on me, Bill. George Washington was not one of my favorites before I read about him in Legends and Lies. Second best president, Marjorie, Lincoln, number 1. Wally Vega, Barcelona, Spain, just received the audio of killing Lincoln over here. I'm happy to be a new premium member, and we are happy to have you, Wally. Enjoy Espanol. Espanol is Spanish. España is the country. Also, big happy 67th anniversary to Diane and Al Shoemaker, San Antonio, Texas. 8 kids, 20 grandkids, 10 great-grandchildren. Christmas must be fascinating and at home. Who are you again? And finally tonight, the Factor tip of the day. I traveled to Normandy, France last week to educate the urchins about one of the most intense battles for freedom ever. We visited the American Cemetery, a stunning place, very respectful. All Americans should try to get there, pay their respects. Also, we toured the Normandy beaches, especially Omaha and Utah, where American forces overwhelmed the Germans. And it was a really tough fight. Saving Private Ryan, best movie if you want to see really what it was like.